So I'm here today on the Hop River State Park Rail Trail, and I figured since I'm here taking a break, I would share the story of my time on the Erie Canal Trail. So this is going to be another Tales from the Trail and about the Erie Canal. So this is probably not going to be the full story of the Erie Canal Rail Trail, or the Erie Canal Trail, but this happened to be the trail that anything that could go wrong did go wrong. So the first part about it is, it was me and John, but we also recruited two of my other friends that wanted to get into cycling, and we invited them along for the ride. And things were good. We had pretty good advanced planning, figured out all the stops, the distances we were going to go from on each leg, and we had set it for, I believe it was June. I can't really remember. The year was 2018 was when we were riding this, so I'll have to relook it up and correct the recording. So let's see. We were gonna take the train to Rensselaer from Springfield to Rensselaer, and we had rented a bed and breakfast or an Airbnb in Rensselaer, which was fairly close to the start of the trail in Albany, right? Yeah, Albany. So I guess it started off on a bad foot in that there were so many delays with the train, and even though the train was scheduled to have bikes on it, they had no idea why we had bikes or bike passes. And so normally you would put the bikes in a specially designed bike rack, but in this one they just kind of threw them in the baggage car, which whatever, was fine. I think the train ride was going to be 6 to 8 hours. I don't quite remember, but it was a long train ride, and there was a lot of delays. There was like an hour hangover in Connecticut when they switched from a diesel train to an electric train, and then there was like another hour delay when we had to wait for a cargo train to get out of our way, or to finish it, because cargo trains have the right of way. But we ended up getting to Rensselaer probably around 7 or 8 o'clock. It was getting dark, and we had to ride our bikes from the train station to our Airbnb, and throughout the entire time the host was like, "Where are you guys? You were supposed to be here at this time, and you're not here." And I'm like, "Oh, we're stuck on the train. We can't do anything about it." But anyway, so we get there, we lock our bikes up, get ready, go to bed, have some food. And the ride was scheduled to be 7 days, 6 or 7 days, because the Erie Canal is about 400 miles long. And so we start out, the weather report says it's going to be kind of an off and on rainy day depending on where you are, but it ended up pretty much raining the entire first day. Not enough to be drenched, but enough to just kind of be wet and annoyed. And we stopped, had breakfast at a I don't even remember the name of the restaurant, but anyway, we stopped, we had breakfast, got going, got to the start of the trail. We took our group photo, everybody somewhat good spirits, but I'll throw the photo in. And we were ready to go. John and I had taken what we had learned from the other trails, and we planned accordingly. It was also the first time of riding my new bike, the Trek here. because, you know, from what we had learned on the other trails was if we were riding on gravel, we needed slightly wider tires than our hybrid bikes, which had very poor control. But, you know, so we took what we learned, we loaded up. I don't like stopping, and that's just one of my problems, so we end up having like 7 days worth of food on us. And so the bikes may have been a bit overloaded to begin with. But, you know, we got going, and we had a, you know, pretty good ride. The start of it was was paved, so smooth sailing. And I think you went about 5 or 10 miles before the trail ended, and you had to take road to find the next junction of the trail because there's no direct connect through to it. I mean, it wasn't bad. The roads that it had you riding on weren't too bad, and we were coming through early enough in the morning that the traffic was very light. And, you know, there was a lot of hills because you were going down through the streets, and then for some reason you had to turn, and then to get to the trailhead, the next trailhead, you had to climb like a 14 or 15% grade. It was crazy. But, you know, we took a break there after that because we were kind of tired. You know, again, you know, fully loaded for 7 days worth of camping, you know, tents, food, clothes, camping, you know, not stove, but, you know, the little tiny micro stoves. So it just kind of weighed us down. And then, let's see, we got going, and, you know, we decided to kind of get in a kind of like a box formation so we could all talk to each other. But it was at that point, for some reason, the road gave out under one of my friends, and he ended up falling over into me, throwing me off my bike and kind of into the side of the road, you know, scraping up my hands. Even though I had gloves, it tore up my gloves good. And the other two riders behind us, which was John and his brother, not John's brother, but my other friend's brother, they couldn't stop in time, so they pretty much end up riding over my other friend, which just caused like this huge crash and end up bending Jeremy's rim slightly. So he had a wobble in his front tire. So that was crazy. You know, luckily everyone was okay, and we managed to recover, kind of sort of straightened his rim out a bit, and got back on the trail. But, you know, what a way to start your ride. And then that wasn't even the end of it. Day one was long. We got to this other section shortly later on, and, you know, we're coming down this road, and you have this beautiful shot of, you know, these twin bridges. So we decided to stop, you know, eat some food, take pictures. And it was when I was packing up my bike again, I had heard a hissing, and it wasn't from me, or it wasn't from my bike. So I walked around, and I went to John's bike, and I'm like, John, you got an air leak, and his back tire was going flat. So we rode a little bit further, and we stopped at this house that was under construction. You know, it's kind of like a heavy rain now, and we're fighting with the tire, and it turns out that the Trek tubeless tires, especially when you don't know how to change them, are so hard to change. And so they're tubeless ready out of the box, but so we were still running tubes at the time. I'm fully tubeless now because it's a little bit better for me. But we struggled for like an hour to change that tube because we just couldn't get first we couldn't get the rubber off to change the tube, and then we couldn't get the tube on. And one of the other funny things was we all had spare tubes, but the person who sold John his tubes sold him the wrong size. So his tubes were pretty much useless. But thankfully I had 2 spares, and I gave him 1, and we got going. Or no, I only had 1 spare. So I gave him my only spare tire, and we got going. And we also looked up that there was a bike shop up ahead that we were gonna stop and go to. And was it Schenectady? Syracuse? I'll look it up. I think it was Schenectady. But I'll look it up, put it here. And so we end up getting there to the bike shop. And, you know, thankfully they were open, because what we didn't realize was that it was also a holiday, and didn't think about places that would be closed and not available to us to get replacement parts. So that was an ordeal, but thankfully they were open. Jeremy got his rim straightened out. And then, you know, everybody got tons of spare tubes, because we figured it might happen again. And sure enough, it did. I think it was maybe like an hour later, we were riding back on the trail, and there was this spot we were coming to, and it was a train crossing. And for some reason, as you would expect on train tracks, they just kind of stop and leave trains for a while. So we had no choice, but we couldn't get around the train because it was like a mile long. And, you know, we walked up the rails and down the rails, and there was just no end to it. So what we ended up doing was we unloaded the bikes, and we kind of handed everything under the car. You know, probably not the smartest or safest thing to do, but what else were we going to do? So we handed everything under, and we got through the train, loaded everything back up, and I'm riding along again. And I'm like, huh, my bike's feeling a little weird. I don't know when it happened, but apparently I had a flat. So then it was my turn to spend an hour to change a tube out and get everything going again. So that was an ordeal. You know, so because of the 2 tires and the crash and the incident, you know, we didn't get as far as we wanted, but we ended up stopping at one of the locks on the way. And, you know, we camped out there. We talked to the lock master. He said it was fine, because apparently that's just a thing people do, is, you know, stay at the locks as long as it's okay with them. And he didn't complain about us being there. So, you know, we set up our tents. I think we had gone 50, somewhere between 45 and 50 miles, I think, was what we had gone. It wasn't as far as I was hoping the first day, because we were supposed to go one more lock up. And so we camped there. Thankfully had a nice rest. And then, you know, you know what? I'm going to stop there. When we woke up in the morning, there was actually a boat coming through the lock, so I decided to record that, which was actually really interesting. I'd never seen a lock working in person, so that was pretty sweet to see. And after that, you know, made breakfast, got up, you know, packed up. I mean, not got up, we just made breakfast, and got back out on the trail. And now we were getting into the end of the pavement, riding on kind of gravel, dirt, like I've been riding on today. You know, it wasn't that bad. The weather was overcast, kind of cloudy, on the coolish side, but not too bad. So it was a pretty decent day. But halfway through the day, you know, we were running out of water, so we stopped at a restaurant. I got ahead of myself again. We were running out of water, and Jeremy's brother ended up having an incident where I don't think he had actually used his water up quicker than the rest of us, and unfortunately he was kind of getting dehydrated, which I didn't know at the time, and so he ended up having an incident where he ended up crashing and impaling his leg on his crankshaft. But we didn't know how bad it was at the time, so we whipped out our first aid kits, wrapped him up. Things looked okay. He was willing to ride, so we decided we were going to stop at a restaurant, pick up some water, and then carry on again. So we did that. Moved maybe about another 15-20 miles, I think, after that. And then we stopped at another lock to top off our water again, because the day was getting hot. And again, water was getting low. And the locks were where you were supposed to go for water. So we ended up filling up again. Talked to this family that was there at just sitting at the lock at the picnic tables. And then looked over at John's bike, and again, he had another flat tire, which was weird because we were just sitting there. So I was like, oh, you know what it was? It's probably one of these kids over here, probably just deflated your tire as a laugh, or just being a jerk. So we tried to pump up his tire, and no, it was flat. He was just like, what the heck? We were just sitting there, nothing happened. We didn't ride over anything, just decided to flat. So between Jeremy's brother being hurt, another flat, and just the mood was awful. So John was trying to fix his flat, and it just wasn't working. And I think we spent 2-3 hours there trying to do it, and at that point we just called it. We were 90 miles in, to a 400-mile ride. We had injuries because of the first crash. Jeremy's brother had a pierced leg, and he was kind of in pain. So we decided to call it. Looked up to if there was any rental trucks in the area, and thankfully, like 3 miles away, there was a place. So the next morning, we ended up renting that U-Haul truck and drove all the way back home. But that is a trail that I definitely want to go back to and finish. And I've learned a lot since then. There's been a lot of sorry about that. Some cyclists coming through, and I'm just sitting in the path. It's the first cyclist I've seen all day. But as I was saying, so we rented the U-Haul truck, loaded up our bikes, drove home, but definitely want to go back to the Erie Canal Trail, try it again. I've learned a lot. I definitely know how to ride better than I did before. I know now that I don't need 7 days worth of food, because there were plenty of shops along the way that we could have just stopped at and resupplied. So maybe only 1 to 2 days worth of food is all you really need to lighten the bikes up. But between all of us, we know how to ride better. We know not to ride so close together. So I think if and when I can convince people to try the Erie Canal again, it's gonna be a good time, and I'm looking forward to trying the Erie Canal again. So that's been this Tales from the Trail, and I don't know how long this video is because the screen turned off and I was just kind of rambly, and I don't know how I'm going to edit it down, but it's fun. I mean, there's definitely obviously more that I could talk about: the scenery, the sights, driving by the locks. I'm definitely going to throw in the video of the lock in action, which I've probably already done. And there was a lot of nice sights, and definitely want to go back now that I got a camera that I can film things on. It's definitely going to be a good shot, good video. All right, and I'll see you then.